Greetings, I'm William Vasvary, chef instructor here at the Community College of Philadelphia. In these circles and my humble kitchen, I'm known as Chef Bill. One of the things I did this past week in my bake shop class was we made some Madeleines, okay? Now what are Madeleines? A lot of folks get them confused and think they're cookies. They're not. They're small genoise or sponge cakes, and they have a little bit of a history behind them. The ingredients for making these Madeleines are made up of flour, butter, sugar, and eggs. Now I tell my class, what other item is made up of flour, butter, sugar, and eggs? Pound cake, okay? But what I'm going to show you today is if you rearrange the same ingredients, but if you just rearrange the portions, you can go from a thick pound cake to a nice, soft, spongy cake known as a Madeleine. Now, a little bit of a history. The Madeleines are named after Madeleine Pommier. I did my little bit of research. She baked these delights for the Duke of Lorraine, okay, Alsace-Lorraine region of France. And his name is Stanislaw Lazinski. He was the son-in-law of King Louis XV. The king was so impressed with these cakes, he named them after Madeleine Pommier. The rest is history and part of French culinary history, okay? Basically, what we're going to do today is we're going to make 4 types, our production schedule, we're going to make 4 types of Madeleines. We're going to make 2 sweet, 2 savory. Now, in order to make Madeleines, what you really need, some equipment, okay? You need a whisk, you need a portion scoop, you need a zester, you need a brush so you can brush butter into your Madeleine pans, and you need Madeleine pans. Now, there's 2 types. This first one that I'm holding on to, these are shallow pans, okay? The classic Madeleines we're going to make today are going to have some lemon zest in them. They're going to be in the shallow pans. The 2 savory Madeleines we're going to make are going to be in deeper pans, okay? As you can see, they have that scallop shell shape, and I can get a nice, what we're going to do is in the 2, we're making herbes de Provence, which we're going to have some cheese in those, and then we're going to do a brie stuffed Madeleine the same way. I have some fresh brie cheese, and I'll show you how to formulate that, how we're going to cut it and put it into our pans. Now, one thing I want to show you, okay? I bought these pans, and I'm going to baby them. By that, I mean I'm not going to use any pan spray at all, and I'll show you the reason why. As you can see, this is one of my bundt pans, and over time, what happens is the spray, it builds up and it discolors. And if I wanted to get it off, I'd probably have to scrub. I don't want to do that. So instead of scrubbing, I'm just going to brush these with butter, and then later on, what I'll do is I'll wipe them out with some soap and some dish detergent, okay, and a soapy cloth. Then I'm just going to rinse them and I towel dry them. I've used these pans about 5 or 6 times already, and you can see they're fairly new, okay? So that's one thing. Now, I described the instruments that you would use, okay? The first recipe, and that's another thing. Usually I tell my students, when you have a recipe, okay, what you really want to do is if you have a couple of recipes, a lot of ingredients, what I tell my students is go down and after you put something in, just give it a check mark. So this way you know it's in the recipe, and you can double check yourself. That's really important. There's nothing worse than you're putting in, all of a sudden it's like, geez, did I put it in or not? And if you miss something like baking powder, you don't want to wait till the end to find out you didn't put it in because they didn't rise up, your product didn't rise up. So it's real important, okay? So I'm going to be referring to that, you know, myself, because the production schedule, like I said, we're going to do 2 recipes in the shallow pan, classic French Madeleines. It's going to have a lemony flavor. And then we're going to do some black and white Madeleines. We're going to have a chocolate Madeleine made with some cocoa. And then later on, to finish them off, I'll show you how we're going to melt some white chocolate, and we're going to dip those. That's going to be our 2 sweet. Now, in the deep scallop pan, we're going to do 2 savory. A lot of folks think, hey, you can make madeleines, and the first thing they think of is cookie sweet. No, you can also make them savory. And we're going to do just that, herbes de Provence, all right? It's a collection of 7 herbs, okay? Rosemary, marjoram, thyme, sage, aniseed, savory, and lavender put together that most classical French chefs would use. Okay? And finally, the last item we're going to produce is brie stuffed madeleines. We have some brie cheese. We also have some rosemary, some other spices we're going to put into it. Now, what would you do with these 2 stuffed? You could use them at a cocktail party. You could serve them as appetizers. Okay? The other madeleines, the sweet ones, normally you could serve those at, say, a tea party, or you could serve those, let's say, for dessert. So, before we get started with the recipes, I just want to show you one thing. The first recipe itself, classical French madeleines, has some lemon zest in it. This is a zester, okay? Now, what you want to do is, all I want is the skin of the lemon. So, to properly use a zester, hold it in your hand, you're going to take the lemon and you just scrape along the side. Okay, and if you can see, I'm taking off the yellow skin. That's very flavorful, and that's what I'm looking to do. That's what I want to put in my recipe. Now, I'll show you what it looks like. As you can see, that's what the zest, that's what I did. And earlier, I got about 3 or 4 teaspoons, and we're going to put that into our recipe. Okay, that is how you use a zester. Now, in some places, you could probably buy lemon zest already produced for you, but to me, it's not the same. You want to have it as fresh as you possibly can. So, let me just scrape this over here, put the zester and cutting board on the side, and now we start our recipes. So, for the first recipe, okay, in a small bowl, we're going to whisk together the flour and the baking powder. One thing I will tell you right now is the recipes produce 12 of each madeleine. Now, my pans are 16 and 12, but they're deep. So what I did with my recipes was I scaled them up by 1.5 times. But the other recipes for normal madeleines, you're going to use a regular 12-piece pan, so it makes a difference. So that's one of the things. I had to have enough product so I could fill up my shells. The small bowl, you want to whisk together the flour and the baking powder. So the flour itself, I'm using 1.5 cups. Got my handy dandy 1 cup. That's 1. And a half, okay? Baking powder. All right, my recipe calls for 3/4 teaspoon. That's about 3/4. In the batch it goes. Now all I have to do now, you always want to mix all your dry ingredients, okay? If I left the baking powder there, it wouldn't disperse properly into my mixture. So I want to mix it up. Now, I'm just going to put that on the side for now. The next thing I need is melted butter, which I did already. And this is clarified butter in that all the white butter fat and solids are taken out. So it's staying warm for me. I have a portable stove. If I had to heat it up, I could just turn it right on. Now, what I'm going to do next, take a big mixing bowl. I have to put in 4 whole eggs and 1 cup of sugar. Now, I'm going to use, let's see if you can see it. If you can pick up, those are vanilla beans. And what I did was I made my own vanilla sugar. I had 3 vanilla beans I put in the jar. Then I just took regular granulated sugar, put it in, left it there for about a week. Lo and behold, I have vanilla sugar. Okay? And my recipe calls for 1 cup. So I can, my 1/2 cup can fit in. There's a 1/2. Okay, there's 1 cup. I'll put that away. Now, I need 4 whole eggs. All right, now, I'm going to put the eggs and the sugar in a mixing bowl, and what I want to do is mix it till it's light and fluffy. I could use an electric mixer, okay? But most of these recipes are simple enough. You can just use a whisk. Now, let me show you something, okay? We're going to bring one of my other favorite toys. This is known as an immersion blender or a stick blender. Normally, if there was a little blade on it, I could blend anything, but mine has an attachment, a regular whisk. So now what I'm going to do is put the eggs in, and I want to get a really good fluffy mixture. So rather than stand here, take me 5, maybe 10 minutes, it's easier for me to use the electric. So we're going to crack the eggs, pour them in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now, why do I put them in a cup? To make sure if there's any shells, I can catch them. They won't get into my batch. Okay, my cup goes here. Wipe my hand. Put my eggs back in the refrigerator. Okay, now, break the yolks. All right, and now we mix. This is going to give me a nice homogeneous mixture. And as you can see, the idea behind it is I want to create a nice emulsion of the eggs and the sugar. All right. Now, I haven't even been mixing this 1 minute, and you can see how it's coming together. If I did it by hand, it'd take a lot longer. But like I said, because I have my immersion blender, I can use that with the whisk attachment. Okay. That's looking good. Put this on the side. Now, so I checked off, I got my sugar, and it says add vanilla extract and zest and continue to beat. Well, guess what? I'm not going to use any vanilla extract. Usually what I use is liqueurs. Now, because this is going to have a lemon flavor, I'm going to use some limoncello. My theory is if you can drink it and it tastes good, why not cook with it? So in this case here, we need 1½ teaspoons of the limoncello. And that's going to go in our recipe. There's 1, and there's 1/2. Okay. Now the zest. All right. Now I just cross it off once again. I need 2 teaspoons of the lemon zest. Okay. There's 1, and there's 2. Once again, mix it up. Okay, now at this point, what I can do, I can put my stick blender aside with the whisk. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the rest by hand. Now remember, this was the flour and this was the baking powder. So I put a little in, and I'm going to stir, and I'm making a batter. Okay, a little bit more. If you were making a regular cake, you would start with the dry ingredients and add the wet. In this case here, we want to make a nice smooth batter, so we're slowly adding in the dry ingredients. All right, and we just stir to bring it together. It's starting to thicken up, which is good. Okay, and we're going to do the last bit. Now we're going to save our bowl because the other recipes are also going to have some dry ingredients, just about the same. Some baking powder, some other spices. We'll be all set. Now the one thing that's not in this recipe in particular is salt. All right? It is not going to turn around. It will not add to the flavor in any way. Usually if you're using salt, you're using it in savory formulas or recipes. Okay, so that's a far cry from what we started out with. We had the eggs that were like more of a yellow color, and this is more of like a straw color. Okay, so here's our batter. Now, what's next? Shallow pan. Okay, so with our shallow pan, what I'm going to do, I have some melted butter. Okay, like I said before, I'm not spraying. I want to baby these as much as I can. I dip my brush in, and I liberally start brushing every one of the molds. Now, will the butter burn? No. Is the butter calorie free? No, but we don't care because in this case, it's going to add more flavor to it. I have my deck oven set for this particular recipe. It's 350 degrees, anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes. The last time I made these with the oven, it only took 10 minutes. Now, what I want to do now is I could take a spoon and I could portion out, but I want something a little bit more precise. So this is a 1 1/4 inch scoop. And what I can do, I scoop up some batter, okay? And I put it right in the Madeleine mold. I put it right in the mold, and it's going to fill it up. Now I'm going to get consistency with this. All right, so as you can see, they're filling up the molds. Now, as the batter heats up, what's going to happen is it'll fill the mold up even more. And think about this, as the product is going to bake, if you hold it on the sides, there's the only one place it's going to go. It's going to rise up. So you're going to see these Madeleines are going to have a nice ribbed one side because the shell is ribbed. And on the other side, you're going to see it's going to puff up really nice. Okay, so let me just get this going. Now I've made more than enough batter. Can I save it? Yes, I can. I can put this in the refrigerator and I can come back to it later on. I can bake some more Madeleines, and what I might do too is use the deeper pans. I can make a little deeper as well. These are going to have a nice lemony flavor, okay? A nice golden crust. And what I'm going to do later on, I'll show you how to finish them off. We're going to use some powdered sugar, sprinkle on them, and they're going to be perfect. Okay. Okay, so once again, I'm going to save my batter for later. Okay, now, here we are. That's what they look like before they go in the oven. Now, I'm going to put them in the oven, 350. Set my timer for 10 minutes. Okay, in 10 minutes, we check. In the meantime, okay, lemon zest in, confectioner sugar for dusting. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Our next recipe are black and white Madeleines, okay? So for this here, there's two things we have to do. The first thing we're going to do is get all-purpose flour, 3/4 cup. All right, now it also calls, check mark, okay, 3/8 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. Not Nestle's Quick, not anything that's sweetened. You want to use bittersweet chocolate, of which I have here. It's like 3/4 cup. So in this case, it's going to be, I'm going to put in 1/4 plus a tad more. Okay, that's on the side. I put my cocoa away. Now, I happen to have 4 whisks, so I don't have to worry about cleaning. And then what I'm doing now, all I'm going to do is I'm just taking the flour and the cocoa and mixing it together. Let's leave that on the side. Now, I get another big bowl. Okay? And what I want to do, okay, unsalted butter melted. with the sugar, and I have some semi-sweet chips. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine it. Now the unsalted butter, that's 9 tablespoons in my recipe. 2 tablespoons is 1 ounce, okay? So 8 tablespoons would be 4 ounces and a little over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, okay, a half a cup. Let's see, I have a 1/4 cup. So what I'm going to do, 2 times plus a little bit more. Here's my butter. I want to put it in. And what I have to do is I have to melt the chocolate chips, okay? Now, if my butter is hot enough, I can melt the chocolate chips, of which I have, my chocolate chips. Now, these are regular semi-sweet chocolate chips. If I wanted to, I could have used the bittersweet chocolate. It comes in a really big bar, break it up, but I decided I'd use the semi-sweet. We need 3/4 of a cup. So, that's a half. That's about a 1/4. All right, put these back. Now, if I start mixing this, okay, in this case here, all I'm going to have, it might break down, it might not. So here's what I'm going to do. I have some water in a pot, and basically what I want to do is I want to get the water steaming. Once the water starts to steam, okay, I'm going to put my chocolate and butter over, and it's going to melt for me. It's going to go into solution. All right. Now, while I'm waiting for that, okay, it's going to have the egg mixed in here, and basically chocolate chips bump above the sugar. I'm going to measure out my sugar, and I'm going to mix it with my flour. So in this case, I need 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Once again, I'm going to use my vanilla sugar. There's a half. And that's about a 1/4. Okay. Now, while I'm doing that, let me check the oven. Perfect. They're coming up very, very well. They're going to pine up, and we have just about 6 minutes to go. So those Madeleines that are in the oven, they're going to be perfect. So I got this full tilt. What I'm going to do, like I said, I want to melt the chocolate. Now, somebody said, why don't I just put the mixing bowl right over the flame? You don't want to do that because this is not a cooking device. This is a mixing device. Very important. 2 things will happen. You'll burn the inside and you'll get some discoloration on the outside. You don't want to do that. Okay? In the meantime, okay, here is the pan I'm going to use, okay, when I'm going to put the Madeleine. This is a 2-step process. We bake them. Later on, I'm going to melt the white chocolate chips, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to dip them. And we're going to make a nice presentation platter. What's going to happen is the same way I brush the butter in the other mold, we're going to do the same thing here. And we're going to get some really nice cakes. I tried this recipe before, believe it or not. 10 minutes, they were perfect. All right, now, okay, as you can see, it's starting to melt for me. It's starting to melt even more for me, which is good. About another minute or 2. Now, here's something else. When you're using chocolate and butter, once you melt it, okay, you have to use it. If you let it set on the counter, it's going to separate, okay? And what happens if you were making brownies, let's say, by the time you put your mixture in the oven, all you're going to be doing is frying the batter. Okay, you're going to see chocolate cake batter sitting in a pool of butter, and they're frying. So you got to make sure that you keep it in solution. Okay, see what I got? That was maybe what, less than 5 minutes. So our chocolate is here. All right, let me shut off my stove, and you can see how the steam was coming off, and that's exactly what you want. You want to have the steam that heats the pan, that heats the mixing bowl, I should say, and it goes in the solution. So, at this point here, what we need, we're going to put in 2 whole eggs. All right, using the whisk, I break the yolks. Now you'll notice, begin to thicken up, and that's just what we want. Now, as you can see, it thickened up for us. Now, what else do we need from the recipe? Half a cup of water at room temperature. Here's a half a cup. Here's the water. In we go. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to mix the dry. We add in the unsweetened cocoa, the flour, and the sugar, a little bit at a time. Coming together rather well, and it's beginning to, it's going to have a little body to it. It's not going to be real thin where you can pour it exactly like cake batter or like a pancake batter. This is more of a batter we can scoop once again, and that's exactly what we want. And that's the last bit. Just like clockwork. Okay, my timer is off. Now let's check our Madeleines. Let me put this off to the side. Beautiful. Okay, remember how they were when they went in? Take a look at those, okay? They're nice, bulged out on the top. The bottoms are going to be golden. Now the next trick when you take them out of the oven, I'm going to let these cool for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then I can dump them out, okay? If you let them cool much longer, they might stick to the pan. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is put them right on the side, let them cool, okay? I'm going to continue mixing, mixing in my chocolate for the batter. Okay, then I'll brush the pan. That should easily be about 2 or 3 minutes. Then I'll show you how you depan the Madeleines and let them cool. Oh, perfect, here we go. Now once again, I'm going to have more than enough batter. I did this test recipe the other day and I came up with 28. So that's a good thing. Oop. All right, now, okay. Get the butter, it's on the side. Once again, I got my brush, and I'm just going to batter the pan. And one more. Okay, put this on the side, put the brush here. Now, we're all set. I have my scoop. All right, wipe it off so there's no water. But before that, I'm going to tilt over I'm going to spill out the Madeleines. Excuse me, the proper term is depan, okay? Still probably warm, but what I'm going to do is just pick it up with my towel, turn it over. Okay, now, so I can put this on the side, all right? Okay, and I want to just show you this. Okay, if you look at this, scallop shaped, okay, and on the other side it's flat. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to sugar the scallop shapes, but that's what they look at. And if you can look at it sideways, look at how nice they are. They puffed out like a nice little pillow. 10 minutes, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to put them on this rack. All right, and it's going to be rib side up. And I'll show you later how we're going to dust them with some powdered sugar. Okay, I'll put this on the side. Now, I'll put this back. It's our cooling rack. Okay, now get back to what I was doing before. Same thing. I'm going to portion out. This is the front half of our black and white Madeleines. Now, as you can see, it looks like a ball, and it looks like, yes, it is, and it also looks like, geez, is it going to melt for us? Yeah. Once I put it in the oven, you're going to see, as soon as heat hits this mixture, it's going to slowly melt, fill up the pan, and what you're going to get is the chocolate version of the other Madeleines. All right, now, for this recipe, I'm using an oven. The top of the oven is at 325 degrees, and that does make a difference. So it just takes the same amount of time, not as much heat. All right, here we go. And like I said, when I did this recipe, I had 28, and I will probably get the same thing. I'll make some more later on because I'm sure there's going to be some folks that want to sample a lot of these. They really look good when they're a finished product, and what I'm going to do when I pan them up and show you how you can serve your guests, they're really, really impressive. Okay? So, once again, I can save this. Yeah. All right. Here we go. That's what they look like going in the oven. All right, and we're going to give them the top, 325 degrees, 10 minutes. Here we go, already set for 10. Okay, so now we've completed that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put together a herbs de Provence. We're going to use the deep pan. I'm going to show you first. What we're going to do is normally, instead of making the batter for this particular stuffed version, okay, we're going to use the deep pan, okay? Now, there's pan prep for this, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to start out, there's two things I'm going to put in this pan. The first thing is going to be butter, and the second cheddar cheese, okay? I shredded the cheddar cheese earlier, so this is going to give us flavor, and it's also going to give us a little bit of a nice crunchy coating on the outside of this. Inside the batter, I have some really good Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, aged, I think over 2 years. That's what's going to go in our batter. With our herbs, it's going to be very tasty. How would you use this? You'd want to use this, let's say, if you had a cocktail party. These are great appetizers. When I tried this the last time, I was a little conservative. I didn't put enough batter in the pan. But today, I plan on it. And they should puff up very nice, okay? Very tasty. I'm using dried rosemary, okay? If you dry something out, it's very flavorful because you're taking a lot of the moisture out. I would have preferred to use fresh rosemary only because of the aroma as they bake. But for taste, we'll be in good shape. All right. Anything you dry out concentrates the flavor. The example I usually use in my class is a sun-dried tomato. Once you take all the moisture away, you have that nice tomatoey flavor. Okay, my butter's on the side. So I'm going to take my cheese, and what I can do, and just I'm going to sprinkle some in, as you can see. All right, this is going to create a nice coating on the outside of my Madeleine, my savory Madeleine. There we go. You can be as liberal as you want with the cheese. It actually makes for a little better coating. All right, so that is the first step. I'm going to put that over here. We have our mold ready. Let me put my cheese, leftover cheese, back in refrigeration. Okay, I can bring out my Parmesan cheese. All right, cheddar cheese shredded. Okay, that's there, that's there. So once again, now what I'm going to do in a small bowl, I'm going to take together. So here's my bowl, except I'm not going to use the one that had chocolate. I'll put that away. Here's my other bowl. I want to put in 9 ounces, okay, of flour. Here we go. Wipe this out. All right. All right. 4, 8. A little bit more. There goes 9. There. Now, to this, I'm going to add 3/4 teaspoon of salt. All right. I'm using sea salt, a little bit more flavor. That's about 3/4. I'm also going to add 3/8 teaspoon of black pepper. That's about right there. To that, I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Herbs de Provence. Okay. You're going to use 1½ teaspoons. Beautiful. Chocolate's coming up, and we have 6 minutes to go. All right, that's that. And what am I missing? Okay, sugar, olive oil, whole eggs. All right. So now, this is all our dry ingredients. Okay, we have in there the flour, the salt, pepper, baking powder, herbs de Provence. Now, once again, this is what we're going to be adding to our liquid mix. I get another clean bowl. Now, what do I want? I want 7½ tablespoons, okay? Let's call it 8 tablespoons, because if we have a little extra, it's not going to hurt. 2 tablespoons equal 1 ounce, okay? 8 tablespoons, that would be 4 ounces. So I get my cup. All right, I'm going to add 4 ounces. Butter, I'm just going to go a tad more. Okay, now to this mixture, I'm going to add 1½ tablespoons of sugar. Okay, I'm going to use the vanilla sugar. It really doesn't make a difference. A little sweet, because we already have sugar in the recipe. 1½ Okay, and to that, I'm going to add 4½ tablespoons of olive oil. 2 tablespoons is 1 ounce. That's 2 ounces. So actually, I could use a 1/4 cup. All right, so what I'll do, and I'm just using regular olive oil, nothing special. All right, there we go. There's my olive oil. All right, to this, I'm going to mix up, okay, melted butter, sugar, oil, and mixing bowl mixed together. All right, I'm going to get another clean whisk. Mix together. All right, now I'm going to add my eggs. I need 3 whole eggs. And once again, my eggs. Right, my cup's on the side. The eggs away. break the yolks. Make my mixture. Now look at how nice and thick that came for me. That's a nice emulsion. We have egg, we have our olive oil, we have our butter. Okay, what's missing? Parmesan cheese, which is right here. I'm going to give it a little healthy amount, a little bit more. All right. Put my cheese back in refrigeration. That's all the time we have for part one. Watch part two for the rest of this episode.